And then we saw all the extra money we had and we were like, oh my gosh, like it started to be fun. We started to sell things around the house. And I think we sold upwards of $8,000, $9,000, $10,000 worth of just things lying around in the house.
I'm Ben Ward. This is my beautiful wife, Marie Ward, and we have been married for 9 years. And for a living, I'm Senior Vice President over at Axis Capital in the Excess and Surplus Lines Property Division.
I would consider myself more of like a serial entrepreneur. I'm more of that creative side. I've done everything from have an event planning company to being a personal trainer, certified postpartum and labor doula. And so I've dabbled in a lot of different areas, and so I'm excited to be here.
So back in 2017, we decided that we wanted to sell a house that we had owned for several years. And we knew that the house needed some work. We had a goal in mind for how much we wanted to sell the house for. And so we sat down together and we wrote out a plan. We wrote out who was gonna do what, and we wrote it all up, put it on the refrigerator. And that became sort of our mantra from day to day. This is what we're going to do, and this is what we're going to do to make sure that we accomplish the goal of selling the house.
We had to really make sure our finances were tight, and so that really forced us to communicate, to talk about things. And so that's what really led us to really focus on having a monthly budget.
Not only were we selling, but we were also buying another home. And we had a same-day closing. So we had to sell the house that we were in, do that closing, and then go straight into the closing for the house that we purchased. And it all went off perfectly. And as she mentioned, it took financial resources. It took good credit, which we both had, and I was very thankful for the fact that we had the kind of credit that allowed us to really get the home of our dreams.
So our plan was to first get on the same page with just the day-to-day and just the monthly budget. And what we did was, we wrote everything down. And I remember in college, I found out about a financial training called Dave Ramsey's Financial Peace University. And so it really catapulted my knowledge because I went to college without a financial IQ, I feel like. And I didn't know, my family didn't have conversations about money. So we learned what was called a zero-based budget. And in that, you give every dollar a name. So every dollar that comes into the home, you give it a category. There were budgets that were fixed, and so we knew there were certain things that were not going to change.
So when we set out on the journey, we'd already saved about $20,000 just for the purpose of buying the house. But we also knew that if we got the amount of money that we knew that we were capable of getting on the house that we were selling, we knew that we were going to get at least another $100,000 that we could put down on the new home. And that's exactly what happened. That was what we earned off of the sale of the old home. It took marrying her to start to regain a sense of what it means to be good stewards over my finances. And so I know one of the things that we did to start off with was look at our cash flow, look at how we were spending money. One of the things that she did was she eliminated a whole lot of things that in the end we both deemed to be unnecessary. We struggled a bit because there were some, subscriptions and things that I thought about. I was like, I need that, and she won out.
So we really knew our strengths and we tried to really just run with that. And so once we knew that that's where we were going, we had to be very structured. And it even got to the point where I think even with our groceries, we would do that with cash because that was a category that could just go way south. And so once that money ran out with cash, I really had to budget it. It was gone. Like we'd have to eat things in the house and not like go out to eat and do all these extra things. And then we have separate categories for our below money. So those were, that was money that we could just spend and not be accountable for. But every dollar had a name. And so when it got to where we were really good with it, there was less friction when we had our budget meetings. But, I wouldn't say it was easy, but I would definitely say it's necessary in order to go from one area to the next financial goal. You really do have to sit down and have those meetings, and whatever's left over, how do we turn that into, I'm not going to spend it just frivolously, but then that became the saving.
And let me just add, making money, it went from being stressful to enjoyable, to the point where very early on in our marriage, we became debt-free. Just very fortunate to be in a position to, occasionally get very large sums of money. We were just able to, with the stroke of a pen, just wipe away all of our debt except for our mortgage on our home. And then going forward, we made the decision that if we buy a car, we're paying cash for it.
A car's not an asset until you actually have your name on a title with your name on it. It's a liability. And so it just really increased our cash flow when we didn't have car payments. It was just like, and then we saw all the extra money we had and we were like, oh my gosh, like it started to be fun. We started to sell things around the house. And I think we sold upwards of $8,000, $9,000, $10,000 worth of just things lying around in the house. And it just became like a fun thing for us. Like, how cheaply can we live to have extra money at the end of the month? And we started to get friends that were doing the same thing. So it just became like a fun thing for us as we continue to build wealth. So the advice I would have for a couple to really experience financial freedom is, the first thing you really have to do is you have to be honest with yourself. If you're not happy with how you're spending money, and in your gut that something needs to change, then you need to bring it to the table, because if not, it's going to be brought out eventually anyway. So I think it's really important just to recognize where you're at, to have those conversations, and then to be very intentional about where you want to go with the money that you're making together, and not just a conversation out loud, but to write it down on paper and to put it up somewhere where you can actually see it. 3 is to really get honed in on the implementation of that. So I always say, if it's not written down, it's a dream. But when you write it down, it becomes a goal and it becomes more concrete. And so you've really got to, have those communication, those meetings, those check-ins, keeping each other accountable. And it's just like iron sharpening iron. I don't believe that it's really about how much you make, though. I always thought that being younger. But it's really about what you do with what you make. I had very, very little money, even going, like I said, into college. But because I could work with a little bit and make it grow, then when I married then and I saw how much we had, to me, it was definitely more expenses and more things, I had to work with. But I just felt like, I can work with this, So you really have to think about it that way. You just have to start somewhere, and you will see the progress as time goes on.